I guess I'm not expecting too many people up at 8:30 on a Sunday, especially Mother's Day. Just wanted to do a quick update stream, show off some of the stuff I've been working on. So over there, was printing. Um, let's see, get part here. Esun PTG Gray, uh, Haribo 3030 parts. Printing this set for Les, so he can start on his build, and is printing the Z motor mount and the Z upper rod right now. Um, Slowly doing it because I'm trying to miss that hole, so I can't do a full plate. But otherwise, yeah, it's been pretty good. So I finally figured out the problem I had with the motion system in Fusion 360. There's a bug when you switch different joint types. It doesn't really pick up the parameters correctly, so you sort of have to play around with it, and I finally got it working, and I started to redo the. I'll show you the old one. Started to redo the XY carriages. There was a problem with the XY carriage. Show you the old movement for a second. I'll bring this up. So um, this was the old idea, right? It was the old idea was that we have these horizontal oriented. Let me show better here. Horizontally oriented XY carriages, and they work really well. I mean, like the design of it was pretty good. It works pretty well. The issue was that um, when we get to the corners, um, we are limited in how far we get in the corner because the two blocks kind of take up a lot of space, and end up with a lot of dead space that I can't use. So that was the first issue, and also the second one was that um, having this take up this much real estate means that um, my I don't have really a lot of room for the Z carriage um, mounting, so decided to go with a different route. So ended up um, redoing the block. So the old block used to look like so. The progression, right, went from um, this was the first version of it. It went from this big thing over to um, this one, which was a lot more streamlined, um, and then decided that the horizontal placement of this rod really didn't make any sense, taking up too much space. They went and ended up going with a vertically mounted um, XY carriage, and having this rod, the 8 mm rod, perpendicular to the 10 mm rod, kind of like the stock Ultimaker style, where the orientation of the block is vertical. So um, it seems to save some space. The only issue with it was that now the top and bottom is not it's not symmetrical because I needed Hey guys, so the back of this, I could show you guys the back of this in a second. Let's see. Yeah, so get rid of this one. So no, not this one. So the back of this needed to be enclosed so that it stops the rod from going all the way through to the other side. So in that case, the top and the bottom is not symmetrical anymore, but that's okay. This means that we have two different parts for the top and bottom enclosures. It uses the same hard. The rest of the setup is still the same. They still got the same M4 hardware to keep the two shelf halves together. So there was not a lot of change in this part except the orientation of it. Once I got that working, I started playing around with the the motion system. So right now, the motion system I got working. So um, it we're able to model the movement of that vertical block, and then with two of these, I started to create um, a cross system where it moves together. So we got the 8 mil rod working to, as the cross member. So got that motion working. But once I did that, I took one step further and made this. So um, I modeled a very simple spider that basically is not the final version of the spider. It just meant to um, tie these two rods together so that we could start playing around with the movement. So this is kind of the current work in progress um, of the movement system right now, and it moves, it works. I'm able to pretty much cover the entire. Forget the top view, maybe that works better. Um, Pretty much able to cover most of the bed with this movement. So um, overall, pretty happy with the way it turned out because then I could actually test out the like how far I get in this corner, let's say, and go against to the diagonal corner. I can test all this without building it first, which that's what I used to do. Is basically I used to print these parts out and actually build the printer, um, just so that I could see where I have run into issues. Right. So right now, it seems to be pretty much covered the entire area. One thing that I'll probably end up doing is going to be to lengthen these four rods, make these four longer, so but slightly longer. Right now, I think they are 400. Let me just double check that. Yeah, they're 400 right now. I think I had to cover the 300 bed. I probably have to go with 425 or 450 for these 10 mil rods. I don't want to go too much too. I don't want to go too long on them because the the I would have to lengthen also um, the 8 mil rods, these two here, to compensate for the longer span. So um, right now these are pretty long as is, so I might have to kind of do something with that to see if I can shorten those. I think these are um, yeah, these are also 400, but like I said last time is that um, you have to cross, so the the weight of these two rods are shared on 4 points, so it should be pretty good. I mean, the worst span is going to be like your worst case scenario is going to be at the edges where you're going to have the support of the two cross members, so it should be fine at 400. Um, it depends too, right? Because right now, like if I were to put the E3D on this corner here, um, it covers pretty well from here all the way to the other corner. Um, so even at 400, it seems to work okay. I think it is we won't be able to cover the entire bed. It might be like a 98, 90, 95, 98% coverage of the whole bed. Um, I think that's acceptable for what we're getting out of it. I mean, from ed, you can see from edge to edge, it does hit edge to edge on all sides. So um, well, you could scale this down, right? So basically, what this is the reference build, right? So right now, this is roughly 300 by 300, and the cube itself, um, once I get all the mounting done, is probably going to be about 450 on the outside. Um, the idea is, you could scale this down if you wanted to make this, let's say, um, 150 by 150. You just divide everything by half, and you have a smaller printer. Uh, the the issue becomes that, like, you have to figure out all the rod spacing, and then at that size, let's say one, like, if you went extreme and went to 150 with a 150, um, you you'll overkill with the 10 mil rods on the outside and the 8 mil rods on the inside, because you really could have got away with 8 and 5, right? So everything else sort of scales. If you scale it down, it's really overkill for what you wanted to do. Um, the the do extrusion, right? Basically, do extrusion is basically you're gonna have to try to figure out how to mount on the spider a extruder on either side, right? One on this side and one on this side, right? So um, that is something like right now, like I said, this is a very simplified spider right now that is just meant to tie the two drive systems together. So it's probably going to either be slightly bigger than this or has like an extension for the dual extruder. Most of the dual extruder setup is probably going to be on this face, because this is the front of the printer. The left and right, um, the left and right bed mount is going to be on these sides. So front and back is here and here. So you probably want the extruder facing the front, and then um, maybe the like the kind of the how ultimate has it, where the parts cooling fan is on either side of those two dual extruders. The it's really not it's really not that difficult, right? To do dual extrusion if you use bolting, because all you need is really a mount for the two hot ends, and they could go on this face here. The difficulty is, having sorry. The reason why it's reduced difficulty is because we will off mount the extruder on the case itself. So most of the um, most of the complex moving parts is not on the spider. So the actual spider containing one or two the extruder is going to be on here. Um, the Most likely the reference build is going to have a single extruder, just so that that's what most people would go with anyway. Having dual extrusion has its own issues, right? Because basically what you have to do is um, you have to figure out a way to make sure that the two extruders um, are level with each other, and there's a lot of alignment issues. So until we kind of figure out um, a clean way to do that, I think going with single extruder for the reference build, it would, and having optionally working on the dual extruder later would probably make more sense. Um, it's probably going to be E3D, so we probably could do something with dual extruders or E3D or Volcano. Um, but like I said, most of us will probably be happy with just a single extruder. Um, the I was playing around with the rod spacing between these two rods. Right now, it is roughly I think I could just get the measurement of these two. I think it's 12.5 actually, or something like that. 14.5. So 14.5 sort of. We could probably go a little lower, just to give these two rods a little less play, because if these two rods are closer together, they will act as one mechanical unit, so that we could start taking the weight a little bit better. The issue is going to be when we're going to make this go to the corner here. Okay, I have one on measurement mode. So if I bring this over to the corner, I'll show you guys there's a potential issue with having the two rods closer is so that, you can see that this block and this block is already within a 2 millimeter clearance. They're not gonna ever touch, because the way that the spider um, in the corner is gonna basically prevent them from touching. Like the spider will hit this part and will hit the bottom, right? Because if you think about it, it hits both of these parts before um, these two will ever contact each other. So um, if I wanted to, I probably could make this go higher, make this go lower, just to have slight overlap, so so that these rods are not too far apart. Then the spider would be a little bit tighter in the middle, but it's something we need to work out. I haven't really given any thought yet, because I have to draw the rest of the spider before I can figure out what size I need there. Um, but like I said, it was just a quick stream just so that show you guys that I got the animation working, so everybody's happy now, and you guys should see like this thing working right now. Without actually building it, which is nice, because like I said, normally I would have built it by now. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these 10 mil rod holders, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 of these. Is it 12? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, 12 of these 10 mil um, plus fit bushings, 10 mil, and then 4 8 mil. So overall, it's using a lot of off the shelf Eiger stuff. So um, yeah, like this thing is designed to be overkill, because basically, like I said, like the standard Ultimaker uses, but for this rod is 8 mil, and this rod is 5 mil. So I'm using 10 here and 8 here, and then the vertical for the Z is going to be 12 mil. So it is going to be like super rigid overkill. But I'm hoping that we could crank the speed up and still have the stability that we were looking for. I'm gonna try to shave off some of the. If I could bring it up again. Right now, like I could probably shave off some material here, moving this ball up a little bit, um, so that we could bring the height a little higher. But I don't want to compromise too much with the strength of this part. So right now it looks pretty good to me. So I guess until we kind of run into issues, I'm gonna leave it for now until we run into issues with it. But overall, like the um, the design of the part is pretty good. I really have been happy with it. So this is the part, the spider. I'm not saying that the spacing between this part and this, you could tell there's still quite a bit of meat there. So I probably could shave off 2 mil, bring this up 2-3 mil, so that the rod spacing between the two sides is going to be a little closer, so that there's a little more strength on that part. Hey, John. Yeah, just unscheduled long, like short, not long, unscheduled short stream showing off the work I've done so far. So I guess since John's here, I'll repeat it a bit. Um, Pretty good, eh, John? So got that working, and I was just explaining some of the stuff I was going to do with the spider. So um, the so this is sort of the middle section of the spider. So there will be a cap for the to capture these two into grooves. So I haven't modeled yet. Then that same cap rotated 90 degrees will work for the bottom. So I just have to model the cap once for the top and bottom for the middle section. So again, that means that we have minimal number of STL counts. Um, once that spider is created, then like what I'll do is I'll expand this face or this face depending on I guess the orientation. I gotta see which face makes more sense to include to start to include the mounts for the modular system we talked about the other day. Is basically put a tongue and groove here or here depending on which face works better, and then having slide-in modules. That way, the spider stays the same. The interface is going to be you have a module that slides into place here, and I'll have two screws somehow through this block. That's the thing I have to figure out. Is I need to put a through screw through this block so that it secures that module and mates it together with this spider. Um, I think that's probably the best way to do it is to allow that whole module, the whole extruder module, to change out for, or not the extruder module, the hot end module to change out for different types of hot ends or different attachments. So in a way, I'm not sure about the CNC mill, but at least things like I guess the fad of the lately is laser, right? So you could put a laser attachment there if you wanted to, and start to just kind of laser some paper or whatever you want to do, or balsa wood and stuff like that. So, but at least right now, the short term goal is to finish up the spider, and then also start thinking about uh, for these XY characters is think about the belt mounting, because right now there are two options with the belt mounting, right? Is either let me get it in the right position. So the belt mounting could either happen on this face so that the belt is um, uh, running on the outside of the rod, and then or have the belt mounting um, on the top side here. Really haven't thought about it yet. And one of the other problems is that this is going to be the rod that drives this guy. So right now, this this rod drives this guy. So right now, you can see that the issue we have is that um, it's a little long. I think I got the position of these rods wrong. See, now that I think about it, I think this one should be higher, and this one should be lower, so that the cross rods cross at the exact reverse, so that this axle is closer to the top of this unit. See, things like that you don't really see until you start to visualize it, but at least right now it's just a matter of getting them oriented correctly. But the movement works, and we sort of have to just flip the spider or upside down later and have these two these two rods closer together so that I can drive this guy, right? So hopefully oh yeah, so I was gonna tell you guys what the problem was. Um, if you use um, let's just close this and bring it back in again. Maybe I do it on this one. Bring the window down here. So if you select, see, like, this is the problem. This is where the bug is. So um, normally there should be component one, component two for the sliding in motion. Um, Sort of how the cylinder doesn't have it either, and when you have to sort of fake select it, and um, then it gives you the precision. It but when you do, if you're on rigid and then you switch to slider, it sometimes it doesn't come up with this precision. Um, and without the precision parameter, you can't make it move along a axis. So the way to get around that sort of bug was to go to cylindrical, select the two, and then the precision shows up, and then you go back to slider. So I'm gonna open a ticket with them and basically explain that bug to them, that the precision parameter doesn't show up into you. If you were on rigid, you have to go to cylindrical before you go to slider. So that was the extra piece that I was missing, that was preventing me from making the movement work. And once I figured out that sort of the the workaround, I started to just basically snap all the parts together. The other one is when you start to layer, like I'm doing I guess what they call the bottoms up design approach. So a lot of the videos are talking about top down approach, which is you draw the big idea that you want, and then you start to chop up and start modeling the different pieces. And once you start to model the different pieces in the same workspace, you start to convert them to components. And once you convert them to components, they end up being in the same workspace. I guess I don't think that way. I think I'm as a software developer, I think it's the other way, where I do a bottoms up approach. So what I did was, I created halves for the bearing blocks, right? Then I went up to take using the halves, right, by bringing them into another design. Once I bring the halves together, I started to put in the bolts, the bushings, right. Then once I did that, um, I went to use them in a different design using the block, and then from there I went up, like I think I showed you guys this before. Is I went with and adding that single to a double. Then I built the double up um, to the movement. So basically, um, I start with the smaller pieces and I build up to this. The nice thing and the con of using this method is that if I make a change um, to a lower block, let's say I made a change to this block here, that change I have to go in here and do get, it doesn't show it now, but I have to do a get latest. Basically, it's chained, right? That's why you got this linkage. So it's chained to the other component. Any changes there, you have to update to reflect on here, and then it kind of bubbles up to here, then to here, before it finally shows up here. So if your chain is rather long, like mine, where it's like 5 steps, when you change a base component, like something lower in the chain, you have to sort of go and open each one to get the latest to reflect it. It's just OCD on my part. If you don't care about the intermediate steps, and you only care that the block, let's say that block is reflected, um, the new changes, you just have to do get latest on the topmost drawing, and then it will work its way down to pick up all the other dependencies. but it won't update the dependent ones. It will only update the master one. So I wanted to make sure that all the different intermediate steps is also updated. So I open each one and I do get latest and then I save it. So that's why some of these were like I could show you like like this is version 9. This is version 9, and the older one. I think what was it? Yeah, this one. This is the old XY linear rod half. I'm on version 60, so like to get to this point, it took me 60 versions of edits to get to this point. But then when I started doing this one, when I did this one, it only took 5 because I already knew all the measurements where I wanted everything to be, but it still took 5 versions to get this through hole correct, and then minimize the number of operations I needed to do, and the order I do them in. So I'm learning quite a bit. I think it's it's a it's a it's a learning experience, no doubt. But like, there's a lot of things I'm not sure. If people do this, I think this is kind of like different, where you could use this hole for a nut trap or a countersunk socket cap screw. I think print. I gotta see how well this prints, because right now, like you see, like here, there's a lot of thin lips. So I think it would print. Depends on which orientation we print them in. It should print fine, but design wise, it seems to work okay. So I'm gonna go with that right now. So yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, is is a struggle really to um, sort of seeing how to organize your project, how to kind of structure it together. There's a lot of YouTube videos, but what they don't do is they don't actually tie the whole thing together for you. They just show you very small modules, like, oh, this is how you do motion, this is how you do push pull in a box, and this is how you do holes and countersunk holes and stuff like that. But nobody really goes through and says, okay, like, yeah, how do you do how do you lay out a project? How do you think about, like, what is the thought process? How do you lay out your project? So like, I started to sort of have my own system where, like, all the fasteners I use, right? So all the different fasteners I use, I pick up off of McMaster. They have the different drawings, so I pick up all the different fasteners I use, and then I put them in the directory, and then they were all not in subdirectory before. They were all like all over the place before, and I had a hard time scrolling through to figure out where everything was. Like all the IBS bushings that I use is going to be in the directory. Um, I got tons of Masumi sockets, so basically different drill patterns and different T nuts, different length rods, and like the rod mounts and stuff like that. These are the end caps that I made, so they're pretty much done. There's not a lot of changes to the end caps, so then they end up being in the prototype parts directory. So the idea is going to be that um, once 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 I'm happy with the parts, then they'll go into the prototype parts directory. The and one thing I learned very early in the process is don't delete any drawings that you already done, like um, things like the older corner designs and the older carriage halves and stuff like that, because you never know when you're gonna need to go back and have an idea that you sort of want to double check or kind of reuse a little bit of the old design, or want to see some measurements. Let's say for the carriage halves, I wanted to go back and look at what was the thought process. So all the measurements of the through holes and stuff like that. So I kept all of those. Then some of the stuff that I changed, like the Lima 17 pulley, I kept them here. because what I did was I changed the design so that they use a GT2 pulley, but I kept the old one just in case I needed it. And then I had like kind of like the like E3D and bearings and sorry that doesn't really belong in any of these directories. I put them into like a generic directory. Once they start growing pretty big, then I start to subdivide those. So this works pretty well because like basically once I proven out a part, right, I move them to the prototype parts directory, and then the test, like I say, this one is the vertical XY movement is really a test assembly. So then those test assemblies will end up going in order. So I have it if I needed to show it, but it's not really something that you carry forward. So I wanted to keep those there. Um, and then that way the root directory only contains work in progress of what the parts are, and then probably later on it's going to have I have a assemblies directory where I take the prototype parts that contains some of the hard parts and some of the printed parts, and then I start to assemble them into sub assemblies, and I can snap the sub assemblies together to form the whole printer. So that's the that's the workflow I set up for myself to see if it will work. I'll keep you guys updated if I change that workflow. But so far it's been pretty good. Um, the the difficulty I ran into was basically finding the step files or the of the parts I use and then uploading them. Seems like maybe 2 or 3 times out of 10, um, 2 or 3 times out of 10 uploads is basically it fails and then it crashes Fusion 360. So it's just really annoying. I don't know why it does that. It just kind of stuck in the progress bar. It doesn't move. Um, let me catch up on the chat here for a second. Uh, yeah, the heat beds. I'm only selling them at the Tindy store for Mad. Um, he he basically manufactures them, and I'm just helping him to carry them in the store and getting some of the sales. He's been busy right now, but there's a plan to transition that item over to his store. Like he's gonna open up his own indie store, and then he's gonna start carrying it himself. Because that was really just a favor for him to do that, and I was taking a lot of my time, so I've asked him to set up his own Tindy account, and then going forward, probably gonna be getting it from him directly instead of through me. Um, so yeah, the beds. We I think we sent out 25 in the group buy, and then we probably sent another 15 already outside of the group buy and the Tindy. So we're getting up to about getting close to 50 beds shipped out. Um, I tell you that the beds themselves are pretty nice. I mean they're nice and like they're gonna be a lot flatter than the ones that uh, you guys been getting. We've proven that it works. The heating and everything works. The sensors are all there. Like the sensor pads are all there. And myself, I think that they are better quality than the original one. So um, the problem we are running into is the shipping because shipping is what kills the price. Like we're trying to keep it at. I think last time we raised it to $95 now, because just to cover some of the cost of the postage. Shipping them around the world is getting expensive, so we're gonna have to work out a new way to send those. Um, John's question: do you keep notes? Um, I do have some drawings, like back of napkin and scrap paper drawings. But once I start, most of this stuff is captured in Fusion 360. Basically, what I do is I think I have one I could show you. Kind of go through my thought process here. Yeah, so this is like one of the older ideas that I had. So I sort of rough sketched this. It is a bad one because I was playing around with lofts as well, so this is kind of bad. Take out the loft so you can see better. So basically, this is one of the ones I was playing around with, and drawing it on a napkin and came back and transferred it over to Fusion. So I was thinking, well, how do I get these like how to get the interface between the 10 mil rod and 8 mil rod, sort of just let the let the bearing holder kind of float in midair and then start kind of turning it and looking at it and staring at it for a bit. That's how usually things like fall into place. Is I start thinking about it. Once I start looking at it, staring at it and thinking about it, then move them around and figure out where in space that the interface needs to be. Not really worrying about at this stage of the thought process is not really worrying about the sizing. I mean, I think that's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of the mechanical guys. Is they are probably still thinking about how big they need to make this thing and all the dimensions and all the angles and all that already. But for me, it was at this stage, I'm just looking at like conceptually how things gonna work together. Then I sort of went from that to thinking about how I would print it, and this is sort of a nightmare of a print because then you have bridging and stuff like that. So that kind of gave way to I think this is the one. So that kind of gave way to the thinking about, okay, I could use a sort of a half clamshell idea so that I could just flip this around and have two parts, and then started to do like think about alignment and stuff like that. So yeah, like not a lot of notes. The notes that I do take is basically I can show you. I take this camera for a second. So I do scribble a lot of stuff on my desk. So um, grab, can I get back here? So the a lot of those notes are basically just scribbles of like measurements and numbers and offsets. Some of them are like ideas, like little drawings with ideas or something like that that I kind of scribble on the cardboard. So I covered the my work surface with a piece of cardboard so that and then same with the you can see that there's cardboard in there as well. So um, that gives me a surface if I need it. If I had an idea that came to my mind or I need a measurement written down somewhere, I just write it down on the cardboard because it's just readily available. And once I finish a big major project, I just recycle the cardboard. Um, I do a lot of paper. Like at work, if I'm at work and I take a break and I'm drawing out ideas and stuff like that, I start scribbling, and then don't spend too much time on the scribble myself. It's just basically rough idea of how it should be laid out and come back and draw it in Fusion 360. Um, so I think I know that was a long-winded response to a very simple question, but yeah, that's the thought process, and I think it is a lot of freeform stuff. That's why like let's say for this one, you see that I have one, two, three. Yeah, there's three different capture positions because basically I move them around and figure out where they need to be. I think that's what's the power of Fusion 360, right? Is in the old days, like you don't have the ability to drag apart and move them around in space. You sort of work on like really primitive 2D sketches, and then you hope for the best, right? Like you in your mind you visualize like how the part's gonna look, or you send it for render and then you look at the part and then you go back to the sketches and you start playing around with the measurements, right? But with through Fusion, I found that like it's and kind of I started with sketch with Tinkercad, right? So the same idea is that it allows you to rapidly take an idea that you have and then just kind of mock it up, and then once you mock it up, you start figuring out where things are being placed, and then from there, like on here, let's say, and once I get to this point, you go and click on the surface and put a sketch there. So is a really powerful way of working and designing things like now. And I think sort of thankful that you guys are forcing me to use Fusion 360 once I kind of get over the initial learning curve, and also the um, some of the limitations of it. Like I still kind of wish that there was a way to align, like center align this bushing on this wall, but something like that is I guess they expect you to kind of put a sketch there and align the part. Things like that kind of bug me a little, but I could live with that. With all the other pros that comes along with Fusion 360, a few of the cons I could live with. So overall, I think it is fine. Over the next few weeks, I think things are gonna really accelerate. Like the is getting pretty quick. I mean, once we start seeing the the movements and stuff like that, it's starting to come together, right? So um, I think in this case, like I said, is I need to work on the spider next week, and then like this thing, and uh, just sort of visualize and solve that problem with the rod spacing between this and this. So we're gonna have to deal with that. But that's no big deal. We can just flip it around and everything will work fine. Yeah. So let me touch a little bit about how I did the Haribo 3030, how different it was versus designing the cube. So when I did the Haribo 3030, I have a pile of printed parts and a pile of like sort of like extrusion rejects that I bought. I drew the parts, I printed them, and then I started to assemble physically assemble the first prototype. I figured out there's spacing issues and lengthwise, like it's not the correct height, and then I had to go order more, um, more extrusions or all the different ones, and then once I started printing, I started seeing like clearance issues, or like I wanted to put in alignment tabs and stuff like that, and I didn't see those problems until I went ahead and actually physically put it together. So then I went and like if I had Fusion 360 where I could just go ahead and model those out, I could have saved a lot of money. I mean, I probably have like $300-400 sitting there, and it's not really efficient use of money and time, right? Because I also have to wait for Masumi to send it to me. I had to print the parts, so the whole thought process is slightly different now that I could go and actually see it on the screen. Oh, it's not going to work, or it's going to work, or I have clearance issues and all this and that. And also, it's nice to sort of be able to rapidly show you guys the work so far, and then get some feedback on it and say, hey, um, this is the idea, and then you guys coming back and saying, well, it works better or worse this way or whatever, and you guys get some feedback. I can actually then rapidly turn around and then put it back in the drawing, and then have update the assembly, and then see the changes and stuff like that, right? I think it like it works, and yeah, like that's one thing that Fusion 360, John, that is kind of odd too, is that um, there's 6,000 ways of doing the same thing, and I think if you look up, I'll see if I can find a link, but there's like a video on 10 ways to make a cube in Fusion 360. So you think about like making a cube is a very primitive um, operation. And if there's 10 different ways to do it in Fusion 360, there's something wrong, fundamentally wrong with how the workflow is, right? Because it's too flexible. I mean, there's that many ways to make a cube. So I also found out that you have the same thing with making a box. So let's say a cube is basically just a box hollowed out. So you could manually carve out the box by having like press pull, or you could have the shell. I just learned how to shell a box, so you can shell out a cube to say take out the middle chunk and shell it out. Um, the like drill patterns, like let's say holes, right? Like if you have 4 holes, like let's say in the I show you on the spider here, you have these 4 holes, right? So Um, I used to sort of have a very time consuming way of doing that. Is basically um, the draw out the 4 points and then select the 4 points and do the four drill holes. Now all I do is I just make one, and then I know that I want offset all four of these, so then I just do a mirror across the axes, and it seems to work okay. I'll do the same thing for the bearing traps. Is just I model one side of it and I mirror it on the other side. So there's a lot of different kind of shortcuts or techniques that I kind of picked up along the way, and like that seems to work for me, and so I'm going to stick with those. Um, Not having to draw a lot of these parts is actually helping too, because basically if I between McMaster for the hardware, the I guess I'm assuming for the extrusions and the bearings, pretty much everything you need is to build a printer in Fusion 360 is already there. The other stuff like the E3D and stuff like that, I basically grab off of GrabCAD. I think NYC had a video last week about searching on GrabCAD and finding files that it's going to save you time. I think he grabbed like a V vice, a pin vice off of GrabCAD and started playing around with that. So you know a lot of what you need is already out there. So um, it's easy to sort of skip over a lot of the preliminary stuff, but you still have to kind of give thought about design. Right? I mean, you just don't slap the printer together easily, right? Like I think the last 2 weeks, the past 2 weekends, I say, I've been up at 4:45 in the morning, and then I spend all my free time on drawing and learning Fusion 360. Is it really takes a lot of time. John, I think if you just sit down one day and have a goal and say, I want to kind of draw this part, or I want to draw or learn this particular way of doing something in Fusion 360. I think if you just sit down and long enough, you pick it up. It's not too bad. It's pretty good. Um, like I said, I'm glad made the move, but at the same time, is that um, it's more of a 3 step forward, like then 2 step back kind of situation where I started learning Fusion 360, and that takes lot of time. And in the meantime, I think if I was using Tinkercad, I probably would have been done a lot of parts by now. On the flip side of that, if I did it in Tinkercad, then a lot of the rapid turnaround is not there, because there's no like now that I got used to the timeline and understanding that enforces your thinking process of the order of operations for um, the different cuts and the different joints. Once you kind of get into that mode, it makes it very easy. Like what I mean by that is your the stuff that you have in the beginning of your timeline generally are the more stable stuff. So if you started playing around with adding like fillets and features and stuff like that, you could move them around so that you have a certain point in the history that is sort of denotes a stabilized um, model. Then after that is your experimental stuff. And the worst case is that you scroll back your timeline to the point where you were stable, and you could just restart from there. So that is a very powerful way of working versus Tinker. Tinker is like very linear. It's like you Control Z undo everything up to a certain point, but you can't just say I want this section and move it to a previous tempo reference, right? So once you get used to that that way of thinking of using the timeline to your advantage, it makes life so much easier. And also I think if it works for you is to use the bottom up approach versus the top down approach for design. I think that works for me and most of what I want to do. So I'm sort of going against the grain. If you look at all the videos that talk about Fusion 360, almost all of them are doing top down design, and yeah, I don't do it that way. I mean that just doesn't seem workable for me, especially when Like I don't have the grand idea, right? I think if you have the grand idea, let's say you're going to go and say, uh, you have 80% of the idea already, and you just draw, you just laying it out, then it's a different story, right? But if you don't have the grand idea, you need to sort of have stabilized parts that um, you could build up from, right? Like a library of stable parts that you can build up from. Then bottom up is the way to go, right? So um, so that the other thing is I want to kind of touch on is um, you could use this option here for insert a McMaster card component in the active document, or go to parts for CAD, and both of these will go to, like, actually this one will open in Fusion 360. Parts for CAD will open in a web browser. Both of them will automatically suck the part into um, your current drawing. But the problem is that let's say the fastener. If you use the M3 by 25 and you just sucked it into your drawing, it doesn't appear in your project. It appears as a component in your current drawing, and if you wanted to reuse that over different drawings, you have to kind of go and export it and then import it into here. At least uh, that's the only way I found of doing it. So I actually don't use this insert part here anymore. What I do is I go straight to the McMastercard website and download the step file from there. Same with the Masumi and Eiger stuff. Is basically I open a different browser window, I go to the site, pick up the part number, download the step file, and load them and do the upload here in right into the correct directory where I right here, like I do the upload and then I go right into the directory where I need to go, right? Uh, it saves you having to kind of muck around with exporting and importing from your drawing and all the other jazz. So I just end up downloading stuff out and uploading in here. What I wish really is that they had a way for you to share this across different projects. Is once you kind of go up to your root directory, which is for let's say for this one is for Haribo Cube, that's it. Like you can't share this across different projects, which is unfortunate because once you start building up a library of parts, do you want to kind of keep them self-contained? I guess you would have to have like a Haribo Cube directory here, and then start your next design with a different subdirectory. But that just gets very messy because then you end up having multiple projects in the same container. So um, it's weird. I just gotta get my head wrapped around how that's gonna work for it to optimize that. Otherwise, I think again, I always like to keep these within the hour because I don't want to be like rambling on and on. John, I think that's it. You just need to kind of sit down and pick something like you say, oh, I want to print a fan shroud, or I want to print I don't know, fidget spinner or something. It's that you sit down and actually say, hey, how do I draw that? And then once you start drawing and once you start doing like fillets and holes and stuff like that, what I would how I learned it was kind of say, hey, I need to do this part and I need to learn this feature. So like fillets or um, holes and patterns and stuff like that, mirroring, uh, layout, movement, assemblies, and joints and stuff like that. So once every time I want to learn something, I pick a topic and say, ah, that's the function I'm going to learn, and then from there I just kind of use that over and over and over again until I get really comfortable with it, and it becomes part of like muscle memory, kind of like understand how it works. One thing I really want to get is that space mouse. I understand now totally why that space mouse is going to save so much time because like having both one hand on the keyboard, one hand on the mouse doesn't work. It's slowing me down a little. So having a space mouse, I think, will work. So I'm probably gonna end up picking one of those up when I get a chance to. But if you have any, John, if I'm not saying I'm the expert here, but I probably have a little bit more experience than you do. If you have any issues, with something that you want to try, or if you want to see some of the models, I probably could show you what I've been doing so far and how I get around certain limitation. So we kind of learn together, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Is that we anyway. So I think that's it. I think for now I'm gonna go and continue working on the spider, and hopefully we place the PI on the 2 heat beds today and get going on the orders on Tindy. Um, Next stream, I know not next scheduled stream. Maybe I streamed before that, but the next scheduled stream is probably Wednesday because like I said, it's like doing Tuesday and Thursday is taking up too much time, and the guys are taking the guys are spending too much time reviewing the 2 streams before Saturday. So I think Wednesday is sort of a good compromise. Is basically Wednesday I'll do a short 1 hour, 1.5 hour, show you guys what I've done so far. Then Saturday would be the main review for everything that happened in the last week. So that I think that setup works. So I'll probably stick with that Wednesday and Saturdays. And then if I have something really cool like today, where I had the spider working, if I have something really cool, I'll do an unscheduled stream, and people just come. It's not really that like set topic. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'll stream again. Anyway, I see you guys later. I know it's Mother Day, so you guys might be out, but keep in touch. Go stay on chat, and then we will talk there. See ya.